I want to start with what Americans are talking about when they're thinking about whether or not we should change a policy to allow for exports. I think you can tell from my opening statement and from comments that I've made over the past year that I think it is time to look at this policy and to repeal it for a lot of what I consider to be substantive policy reasons. But at the end of the day, the people that I work for really don't give a hoot about what the policy is. What they want to know is it going to cost me more money when I'm filling up, whether it's filling up my car or my snow machine or my boat or home heating fuel? So the question that I would ask of you, Mr. Pasquale, and Ms. Rosenberg, you are the folks that are looking at these studies that are out there and the analysis and the critique as to what lifting the export ban would actually reveal in terms of pricing. Can you speak directly to that? And either one of you proceed. Mr. Pasquale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're absolutely right. The critical focus on the part of Americans, and Senator Cantwell has indicated this as well, is the critical issue is price. And every single study that has been done by a major institution has come to the same conclusion. Lifting the export ban will reduce the price of gasoline in the United States. And the reason for this is that the price of gasoline is tied to the Brent crude international benchmark price, not to WTI, which is the benchmark price in the United States. If we are able to export light tight oil from the United States, we add to the global supplies that contribute to that Brent crude benchmark. As a result of that, we help drive down the international oil price that is fundamentally tied to the price of gasoline in the United States and around the world. If you look at the trends over time, if you look at it across the world, it is the same issue is true in every single market. The price of gasoline is linked and tied when there are open markets to the price of Brent crude. So the ability to export actually drives up international supply for that crude oil that's necessary. It drives down the price of gasoline. And in addition to that, it has a number of other benefits that we've laid out on this panel of increasing jobs, of increasing revenues to states, of increasing gross domestic product and the product of individual states as well.
Thank you. Ms. Rosenberg, care to add?
I'd agree with everything that Carlos just said, and I'll just add that these studies that we're talking about, they're not only independent studies, some of them are industry-sponsored, but also studies by the EIA, as you mentioned originally in your opening statement, have also made this point that the prices for gasoline for our consumers here in the United States are largely tied to the international benchmark price, to the Brent price.
Let me ask a question, I guess, to reinforce a point. And I think it was, I think both of you spoke to it. But the suggestion has been made that the reason that we would even consider lifting this export ban is because this is something that the industry wants. So I'm not going to ask Mr. Lance this because as the CEO here of ConocoPhillips, people would say, well, of course, ConocoPhillips would like to see the export ban lifted. But what I think is important to understand a little more clearly is why it is important to other sectors. And I think, Mr. Pasquale, you mentioned it in the manufacturing sector, the banking sector, the financial sector, the benefits that we see when we allow for increased production. Ms. Rosenberg, you were focusing more on the benefits from a national security perspective. Let me ask you the question then as to, I mean, we have seen domestic production rising for years. We're backing out imports there, which ultimately has the same effect, pushing more oil out into the global market. To the extent that lifting the ban would boost production even further then, have we seen national security benefits already because of of what we have put out on that global market?
I think we have. And there are a couple of key ones that we should bear in mind. The first is the economic benefit that this larger energy production has given to our country. And when our economy is stronger, when we are less indebted, which shows up in our balance of trade, when we capture more of the rents of our oil consumption here at home instead of sending those revenues to producers abroad, that emboldens the United States. It gives it a stronger position to lead internationally. It makes us a stronger, more important trading partner and a strategic leader on international security issues. And we've mentioned the significance for the United States in being able to move forward with tough energy sanctions on Iran in particular, and also when thinking about Russia as well with our European counterparts. Coming from a position of strength as an energy producer and a strong economic base gives the United States that ability to lead forcefully on such international security issues.
I'd like to ask you more on the sanctions piece of it, and particularly with Russia, but I'm going to turn to my colleague and ranking member.